Hey everybody, welcome to the videos where we're breaking down the NASCAR All-Star Race at Texas Motor Speedway on Sunday, June 13th at around 8 p.m. Eastern, shortly followed after the NASCAR Open at around 6 p.m. Eastern, where 3 drivers will be able to drive their way into the actual All-Star Race, plus the fan vote winner as well. But this is going to be a very exciting weekend, and I'm not sure anybody knows exactly what to expect. There's going to be plenty of gimmicks, twists and turns, inversions. There's $1 million on the line. They're using a different aero package than what they normally use at a mile-and-a-half track. So it's going to be a wild and wacky weekend. Yeah, I'm pretty excited for it. I'm sure you guys are too. You probably wouldn't be watching this video. And if you do find this video helpful in any way possible or entertaining, or you just like the content, whatever it is, just by leaving a like, it really does help the channel out. The more you guys interact with the content, leaving likes, leaving comments, it's going to help push it out in the YouTube algorithm. And the more eyeballs that see these videos, it helps us all out for the most part, because I can do more fun stuff with my content. And if you're brand new to the channel, if you're just a frequent visitor and you do enjoy the content that I post each and every single week for you guys, just by subscribing to the channel is another way you can help me out, free way to do that. And if you want to follow me over on social media, I'm at Pennell16 on Twitter, cpen16 over on IG. And if you do want to join the community, I personally think it's pretty much the best NASCAR community out there. Link is down below for that. You get access to some extra content that I work on throughout the week, projections, articles, optimizer, rankings, ownership projections, and a bunch of other stuff. My spreadsheet is loaded with lots of good information, and there's a lot of good people over in the Discord chat. It's a really fun place to hang out, talk NASCAR literally 24/7, makes race days super duper fun. So if you want to check it out, link is down below for that, and join the few hundred of us over there on the Patreon. But I think that's pretty much it for the plugs for the most part, so let's dive right into the preview of this week's race. And as per usual, I do need to mention a few things here before we get into the actual preview of this race. So number one, the live stream this weekend. I'm thinking around 5 p.m. Eastern on Sunday is probably a good time to have it. The open race should be around 6 o'clock, and I don't think I want to be live during that because I'm going to have to see who actually races their way in. Plus, I'm sure you guys want to watch that on TV, and I don't want to interfere with that. So thinking around 5 p.m. Eastern is probably a good time to plan for, but it could be a little bit liquid there, maybe 4 o'clock. We'll see. But you guys can let me know down in the comments whatever you prefer, or I'll just pick whatever I like. I guess we'll find out. And then number two, if you want to join the DraftKings contest that I host each and every single week on the channel, it's really easy to enter. Just comment your DK username down below, say something nice with it, say a prediction, whatever you want to do, just do that. And the first 100 some people that do that and accept the invite that I send you, you'll be entered into the contest to be able to win some money and get a shout out on the channel if you do happen to place nicely. Plus you get bragging rights as well if you know anybody in the contest. I do want to shout out the winners from last week that I'll throw on the screen right about now. In first place, taking home the gold in around $100 some, we had my man Dave here. He's always been in the YouTube comments for a couple years now. Still 33.42, 289 points, absolutely killing the competition. So shout out to you. You had a fantastic lineup. Then coming in second place, and actually tying for second place, we had two people. So we had RotorRep624, also known as C. Austin in our Discord community, and then MC Sub 1546. They both tied for second, taking home the podium. Then right in the bubble, we had Drugman88, Miami Mike, Trucker Mike 1997, Tryhard8, Trent Wade, Egley 1947. Then rounding out the top 10, we had UFC Fan 1717. So shout out to all of you guys, especially the top 3 on the podium. You had fantastic weeks, and if you want to join, like I just said, just comment your DK username down below or join the Discord. I'll drop the link in there, and I'll be more than happy to have you in my weekly contest. Just make sure you join quick because it does fill a few hours usually before the race starts, and with this being a later race start time, it probably will end up filling in the morning on Sunday, so just keep that in mind. But that being said, let's get into the actual preview of this race. As previously mentioned, this is the Texas All-Star Race. There's your outline of the track. We are at Texas Motor Speedway. It's an intermediate mile-and-a-half low wear track. There's going to be 100 laps total, and there's like 6 stages, and there's going to be 70 Dominator points available to us, which means Dominator points aren't going to be of the utmost importance this week. And there's a lot to talk about for all the nuances that we're going to have this weekend for the All-Star Race, and I'm going to be reading it directly off my notes I have because I am not going to be able to remember all of this, and I want to get it right. So bear with me a little bit here. This might sound a little bit monotonous, but there's going to be a lot of things we have to talk about because this is not going to be your regular 1.5 mile track where Kyle Larson, well, I mean, potentially Kyle Larson could come out here and dominate, but there's going to be a lot of different twists that we normally wouldn't have at a track like this. So bear with me. I'll try to put this on the screen so you guys can read it with me, but this is what we are going to have on Sunday. So the race is going to be 100 total laps. It's going to be divided into 6 rounds. Rounds 1 through 4 will be 15 laps each. Round 5 will be 30 laps, and round 6 finishes with a 10-lap shootout. And only green flag laps will count towards the lap total on Sunday, and there's a mandatory 4-tire pit stop during the round of 5. Then to dig into these twists even a little bit more, so the round 1 starting lineup was determined by a random draw. That's what we're going to see on the screen when we go to the driver-by-driver breakdown. We already know the first 17 starting positions, and for round 2, the field will be inverted with a random draw starting anywhere between 8th and 12th. For round 3, the entire field will be inverted. For round 4, the field will be inverted with a random draw, again starting anywhere between 8th and 12th. The round 5 starting lineup will be determined based on drivers' cumulative finishes throughout the first 4 rounds. The driver with the best cumulative finish will start first, while the driver with the worst will finish last. And if there's a need for a tiebreaker, it will be determined in this order: most All-Star Race wins, most Career Cup Series race wins, and then current driver standings. And then last but not least, for round 6, the starting order will be based on drivers' finishing positions in round 5. So yes, this is very confusing. I'm not sure why they're making it this difficult. I'm not sure if it's because we're kind of at a boring track like Texas, so they kind of threw every gimmick possible out there to try to make this more interesting than I guess it would normally be. And then one other thing, another twist here, which is actually very, very important. So the aero package, we typically run the 550 horsepower at the 1.5 mile tracks. That's what we've been doing all season long. But there's a twist this week. So the engines are going to use a tapered spacer, and this is currently the setup used on super speedways where the horsepower targets are in the 500 to 510 range. There's also going to be something on the spoiler as well. So from what I gather from the aero package difference is that this is going to promote pack racing, so it might be like a mini Daytona, mini Talladega. And I was watching Ryan Newman do an interview with Bob Pockras, and Ryan Newman was saying that we're probably going to see some pack racing like those super speedway races. So this is definitely going to be something very, very interesting. I'm not exactly sure what to expect. But with all that being said and all the uncertainty that we have, typically when I have no idea what's going to be going on, I want to play it the safest way possible. In my opinion, that would be just playing the place differential drivers, like guys like Alex Bowman, Denny Hamlin, Ryan Blaney this week, because yes, I want to play Kyle Larson. He's been the best driver at the 1.5s this year, but it's going to be a different package, and if everyone's in packs, it probably means that the fast laps are going to be spread out throughout the field. Like usually at Daytona and Talladega, laps that are not really important, but if a guy leads like 60 plus laps and wins the race, yeah, that's going to be a big boost to his points, but fast laps are completely random. You cannot predict fast laps, and if we're going to be pack racing, people are going to be drafting off each other. They're probably going to be sporadic, which means those 70 dominator points aren't going to be as predictable as they usually would at a 1.5. Like, normally we'd have, like, all the Hendrick drivers are going to get all the fast laps pretty much. Like, Larson, he's going to get a good chunk of those. Alex Bowman, Chase Elliott, William Byron. Then the leftovers would be for a guy like Kyle Busch or Denny Hamlin or something like that, or whoever is fast that day. Which, if they're going to be spread out, fast laps are worth a lot more than laps led. Plus, there's going to be a bunch of inversions. Yes, Kyle Larson starts on the pole. He could easily lead stage 1. Then when they do the best cumulative finish, maybe he just stays up front, wins the race after that. But I don't know. It's gonna be really tough. Anything can happen. There's $1 million in line. These guys are probably going to be driving pretty aggressive for the most part. It's not like anything's too important if you don't win the race here. So we'll see how it goes. My plan for this race is to mainly focus on place differential. Yes, I'll be taking some stabs with guys like Kyle Busch, Kyle Larson. Those guys have been pretty much the best drivers at the 1.5s this year. William Byron as well. They'll be starting up front, but just know there's a lot of risk with them because they're going to get inverted and all that fun stuff. So just keep that in mind. But for my opinion in this race, I'm thinking place differential is the way to go. I'm sure others might have different opinions because, I mean, if anyone tells you they know exactly what to expect in this race, they're lying to you. And that's why I would recommend for you to play lighter than normal this week because, I mean, who the heck knows what's going to go on? I have an opinion of what's going to happen. I have a prediction for it, and I actually think it's going to be the right way to go about it, but we won't know until the end of the race. But place differential, I think, is going to be the most important thing here because, again, I think fast laps for the most part should be sporadic. I could be wrong on that. Maybe Kyle Larson just gets all the fast laps, but even then, we only have 100 laps here, so 100 points aren't going to be super important. Kind of like Sonoma last week. We just had eight fewer laps, so it's not going to be anything too far off of that, but I think that's pretty much it for the preview for the most part. So let's dive into the driver-by-driver breakdown portion of this video. Really quick before I do that, I forgot to mention how the last 4 spots will be determined. So open winner number 1 of stage 1 will get the 18th spot. Stage winner number 2 gets the 19th spot. The winner of the race gets the 20th spot, and the fan vote winner will get the very last spot. So we're not going to know these last 4 drivers until pretty much like an hour before the race starts, so that's going to be a bit of a fluid situation, but just know these guys will be excellent place differential plays. I did mention place differential is probably going to end up being the best way to go, so these guys might end up being very, very important, so do not build lineups before the open is done. It's going to be a bit of a time crunch. We're going to have like an hour, maybe 45 minutes to do so, but these guys are going to be pretty important in our lineups, and they are not that expensive either, so it's going to allow us some flexibility to be able to spend up for these expensive drivers. So that's something to keep in mind. And if you're wondering who is eligible for the fan vote, they have the top 5 right now in fan voting. I believe it's Chase Briscoe, MDB, Jones, Suarez, and Wallace. That's just in alphabetical order. If I had to guess who's going to win that, it's probably going to end up being Bubba Wallace. I think he was going to win it last year, then he wrecked in the Open. So, I mean, we'll have to see what happens, but that's the top 5 right now. If I had to guess who's going to win, it's going to be Bubba. I'm going to vote for Jones because you guys know I like Eric Jones, but I think it is going to be Bubba Wallace. So you can plan on him maybe starting 21st. So we'll have to see how that goes, but that'll be a fluid situation and something we're going to have to keep our eyes peeled on who is going to win these stages. And I'll have some predictions on who I think is going to advance so we can be a little bit prepared. But with that being said, let's get into the driver-by-driver breakdown portion of this video. Just my overall thoughts on the pricing. I went in assuming everything was going to be super soft because it's the All-Star Race and it's going to be a bit wild. So I thought DraftKings would just make it pretty much possible to build whatever lineup you want. And that is pretty much going to be the case here. Like, we have Kurt Busch below $7,000. We got Joey Logano and Brett Keselowski in the 7K range. We got Kyle Larson only $10,200. So it's pretty much a week where you can build whatever lineup you want. And I think that's the right way to go about it for the All-Star Race because everyone's going to have different strategies and it kind of makes it a wide open slate. So I'm actually a fan of how they did this. Now, obviously, there's going to be some major chalk, but with this being so uncertain, you can definitely find ways to get different in tournaments. But we'll start up top here with Kyle Larson. $10,200. He is starting on the pole, and it's a random draw, so I mean, the luck just continues here for Kyle Larson. He gets the best car every week, and now he gets the best starting position once again. And I mean, if this was a normal Texas race, normal 1.5 mile race with 300 some laps that we usually get at Texas, I'd be like, yeah, all in Kyle Larson, $10,200. He's probably gonna lead 300 of the 300 some laps. I mean, it'd just be as simple as that. There is no reason to believe that Kyle Larson wouldn't be the fastest car here. Now that we're pretty much in the super speedway package for the most part, and there's going to be a bunch of inversions, and starting in the pole is probably the most dangerous spot to be in for this race. Now, I think he'll probably have the best cumulative finish, so he should have a good starting position at the end, and wouldn't surprise if he won and led a good chunk of laps. So he's definitely not a fade for me. I would still play him in tournaments, but if I'm playing cash games, I'm probably just sticking to the guys below him, to be honest. I'm not sure if you'd be able to fit in Kyle Larson with those guys, because there's 3 9K drivers. You probably wouldn't be able to fit in Kyle Larson unless you went to a really cheap driver, which is not something I really want to do, because none of these guys are really even locks to make it in. Maybe a Chris Buescher makes it. And really, just speaking of the guys that could make it in, the guys that are highlighted yellow are all eligible to be able to make it into the All-Star Race. If I had to guess, I'm going to assume Tyler Reddick probably wins the first stage there. He's actually starting on the pole for the Open Race, and he's pretty much the best driver of everybody in that race. So I'm going to assume that Tyler Reddick makes it in. Chris Buescher is starting second. I think he'll make it in. He's been pretty good at the 1.5 mile tracks this season. Also good at super speedways. I guess it could kind of be a mixture of both those kind of tracks. So, I mean, Chris Buescher's been just fine in those. I think he'll end up making it. Then the third guy that makes it's a bit of a wild card. I could see Stenhouse making it. I could see MDB potentially making it in. Maybe Ross Chastain, Daniel Suarez, and be on the outside looking in for that. But if I had to guess, I will say it's going to be Reddick, Chris Buescher, and then MDB. I think it's going to be very close between MDB and Stenhouse, but I will side with MDB there. That's just my opinion. On the Open, it could be any one of those guys, but those are my 3 that I'm kind of picking. Then I think Bubba Wallace will probably end up making it in by virtue of the fan vote. But anyway, speaking of Kyle Larson here, I just have concerns that he's on the pole because this race is going to be, with all the inversions we have, it could just make things difficult. He's not locked to lead all the laps here. He's not locked to pick up all the fast laps. Obviously, he's been the best driver this season, looking at his 2021 stats. I just threw in every single race they've done this season. I had the track type form at similar track types to Texas, like the 1.5s. You could throw in Michigan there as well. And he's obviously been the best driver. It's a smaller sample size because he didn't race at them last year, but this season he has been insane. He's good at road courses. He's good at the 1.5s. He's good in the 750 horsepower package. Like, he has shown zero weakness this season. So I'm not saying he's not going to have a good race, and he very well could win this. He's the favorite in Vegas to win it. I think the odds are even getting worse for him to win, like in a good way, just in terms of getting value as a bettor. So I mean, he'll probably end up winning maybe, but I'm just a big fan of the place differential here. Plus, with the inversions, he could always get caught up in the mess. And if it's going to be pack racing, who's to say he doesn't get taken out by just someone being aggressive and he gets hit and he spins out. So, and I assume he's going to be pretty popular as well, because I don't think a lot of people are going to look too in depth of all the rules for this, right? So they're just going to see Kyle Larson in the pool and they're going to lock him in. So there's many ways you can go. I'd probably end up being underweight on Larson, just to try to get leverage there in a race that I think could be very super speedway-ish. So just kind of my thoughts there. I mean, it's hard to say what's going to happen, but I'm a big, like, I'd much rather play Hamlin, Blaney, and Bowman than I would Kyle Larson, if that tells you anything. So anyway, dropping down to Denny Hamlin, $9,900. He is starting 16th. It's just mainly place differential here. I know he hasn't been the best driver in the 550 horsepower package this season, but I wouldn't say he's been bad or anything. He's the leader in points this season for a reason. He's been very consistent. He's only behind Kyle Larson in top fives this year, only behind Kyle Larson in laps led and fast laps. So, yeah, I mean, he's been awesome this year. There's nothing to say anything against him. He's second in DraftKings points scored per race, and he's starting 16th. He's good at these track types. He's also good at super speedways and pack racing, so I think that's another benefit for Denny Hamlin. So he's pretty much one of my favorite plays in the entire slate. I know his history at Texas finish-wise has been bad, but he just keeps having bad luck, like finishes at 34th, 30th, 28th, 20th. We know he's not that kind of a driver. He won the 2019 spring race here. He finished 9th in the fall race. If all goes well, he doesn't wreck out. I mean, I'd be very shocked if he's not in the top 5 at the end of this race. Ryan Blaney, $9,600. He's starting 17th. Of all the drivers with confirmed positions so far, he is starting in the very back. So as of right now, he's got the best place differential upside. Plus, he's good at super speedways, and he's very good at the low wear 1.5 mile tracks. He was awesome here last season. I realize he's kind of skidded a bit since his Atlanta win earlier this year, but at Texas, he's pretty good, and the low tire wear, he's really good as well. But besides that 37th place finish in the 2019 spring race here where Denny Hamlin won, he's finished 4th, 7th, 8th, 2nd, and 5th. So this is a very good track for him. He's not overly expensive relative to how the pricing works this week where guys are starting. So Ryan Blaney, I know as biased as I sound here, but he's pretty much my favorite play on the slate here. Absolutely love Ryan Blaney. If you're playing cash games, you're locking in guys like Bowman, Blaney, and Hamlin. Just get that place differential upside. In tournaments, you can chase the guys starting up front like Kyle Busch and Kyle Larson. They're going to be a bit risky. They're definitely not nearly as safe as the place differential guys, but as for Ryan Blaney this week, absolutely love him. Pretty much my favorite play on the slate. Alex Bowman, $9,300. The Hendrick cars have been unstoppable this year. Looking at his numbers at Texas, he finished 5th in the 2020 fall race last season, 30th in the spring race where he had some issues, then 5th in 2019. If all goes well, the Hendrick cars will probably reign supreme once again, and Alex Bowman is one of those guys, and he's been super fast this season. He's actually pretty good at super speedways. He just happens to get wrecked out a lot because he's running up front, and that's usually where the big wrecks happen, but I think Bowman's a fine play. I mean, I wouldn't say he's as good of a play as Hamlin and Blaney, but he's right there with them. I'd say they're pretty much the top 3 plays on the entire slate right now. So I want to get as much exposure as I possibly can to those 3 guys, and you can easily make lineups with them together. I tried it. It's really not that hard with the way pricing is this week. Then Martin Truex Jr., $9,100. We always know he's good at 1.5 mile tracks. He finished 2nd here last year in the most recent race, and while finish-wise, it hasn't exactly been the best track for him. Only one top 5 finish recently, but there's been some bad luck. Like some of these good drivers have had some really bad luck at Texas. Like Kyle Larson, he's got a couple finishes where he pretty much finished last. Same goes for Denny Hamlin. Ryan Blaney finished last in one of those races. Alex Bowman had some issues as well. Like this is a track where some good drivers have really had some bad finishes, which kind of skews their overall numbers. But starting 10th, I do have some concerns with the fact that Martin Truex Jr. is just not a good plate racer, which it's so hard to know what to expect because we're at a 1.5 mile track. It's not Daytona, it's not Talladega, but we're running similar rules package, and it's going to be pack rate. It's kind of hard. Starting 10th, though, there's some place differential upside. I think he's a good tournament pivot off of the 3 guys we just talked about because they're going to have major ownership. So if you're looking for a pivot, or the guy that does have some place differential upside, I think Martin Truex Jr. does make some sense there. Then dropping down to that 8K range, we have Kevin Harvick, $8,700. He is starting 12th. Similar to Truex, I think he's actually a pretty good tournament play, but I'd say I like Kevin Harvick a little bit more. He's a better plate racer. He's one of those guys that tends to get caught up in the wrecks a lot, but he typically runs well. And I don't think this is going to be like a wreck fest or anything. I think we're just going to be in the pack for the most part. Not really. Again, it's really hard to know what to expect. But speaking of Texas, Texas is a great track for Kevin Harvick. He's pretty much been the best driver here. He's got 2 wins recently. He's got the most laps led by far, the most fast laps, the best driver rating, best running position, or actually the second best running position, only behind Kyle Busch there. Kyle Busch has also been very good at Texas as well. Actually won the most recent race here. Both guys have been fantastic, but Kevin Harvick has just been a little bit better. And looking at his numbers this season, he hasn't been dominant. He's not leading laps. He's not getting dominator points, but this is not really a race I'm really too concerned with dominator points. And he still has 8 top 10s, which is tied for second most with guys like Kyle Busch, Martin Truex Jr., Denny Hamlin, and Kyle Larson, some of the best drivers in NASCAR this season. So it's not like he's been terrible. He just doesn't have that top-of-the-line speed that he had last season. That's pretty much all went to Kyle Larson this year. Kyle Larson's probably having a better year than Kevin Harvick did last year. Well, if it continues all season, I mean, Kyle Larson's going to have a historic season, it feels like, at this rate. But yeah, I like Kevin Harvick. I think he's a good tournament play. With everyone going to be heavy on guys like Larson, Hamlin, Blaney, Bowman, it's just naturally going to be lower on some of these guys in the AK range, and these guys aren't in great starting spots. I think these are good tournament pivots, and If it's going to play like halfway like a super speedway, halfway like a Texas race, I think Kevin Harvick definitely makes some sense starting 12th. Chase Elliott, $8,500. He's starting 6th. He's a good play racer. But speaking of his Texas numbers, he's been a terrible track form finish wise. Like, I don't know what it is, but he just has really bad luck at Texas. He got an average finish of 15.7, and the running position isn't that far off at 14.9. It's not like he has like an excellent running position, but then a terrible average finish. He has 0 top 5s, 1 top 10, only 6.5 laps led per race here. And looking at his actual finishes, they're 20th, 12th, 32nd, 13th, 6th, and 11th. So I'm not really sure what's going on with Chase Elliott at Texas. Now, so far this season, we know the Hendrick cars have been pretty overall dominant, and Chase Elliott's a good plate racer, so it wouldn't surprise me if he's got a top 5 finish today. But starting 6th, I just feel like guys starting above him, like Kevin Harvick, Bowman, Blaney, Hamlin, just offer us more upside because I feel like they can finish in a similar position. So I'm not a big fan of Chase Elliott here. If I'm only getting exposure to him if I'm building like 150 lineups or maybe in a 20 max. I just can't see myself landing on him if I'm playing like 3 max or single entry. Same goes for Kyle Busch, $8,200. He's been one of the best drivers at Texas, kind of right up there with Kevin Harvick as being the best driver. He's the most recent winner here. He finished top 5 in both races last season, and so far this season, Kyle Busch is back for the most part. Last year, whole different story where we just faded Kyle Busch pretty much every single week because it was the COVID era and he sucked without practice, but I think he's back for the most part. He's been really good this season, and he's pretty much only behind Kyle Larson in terms of being the best driver at the 1.5s. I guess you could make a case for William Byron as well, but Kyle Busch has been excellent this season. 5 top 5s, he's got a win, 8 top 10s. Hasn't been much of a dominator, but in terms of getting good finishes, Kyle Busch has been really good. I just hate the starting spot, starting 2nd. I'd rather play Kyle Larson because it's Kyle Larson. The guy's been an absolute machine this season. So Kyle Busch, a very, very risky play. Only would get exposure to him more than likely in 150 max. Not sure if I'd get there in 20 max, maybe a few lineups, but very, very iffy play for me this weekend with how I'm expecting this race to play out. Unless he wins the race, then he probably won't be optimal. William Byron, $8,000. He is starting 8th. I mean, Texas is kind of a so-so track for him. The numbers are a bit skewed considering he finished 37th in one of those races, but the way he's been running this year, top 10 machine pretty much each and every single week. The Hendrick cars have been amazing, and looking at his 2021 stats, he actually has the best average finish of all drivers once you exclude road courses and super speedways, because those races are a little bit sporadic, so I excluded those from the 2021 statistics, but he's been awesome, man. The 3rd best drive rating. He's got 5 top 5s, 10 top 10s, which leads all the drivers. He's been a dominator before. He won Homestead, another 1.5 mile track, and he's pretty much good everywhere. The Hendrick cars are fast each and every single week. Starting 8th, I think it makes it in a bit of an interesting spot where he doesn't have a ton of place differential upside, but he's not starting at the very front as well. So I think he's an interesting tournament play, and the way he's been running this season, I just feel like the good luck continues where he just grabs another strong finish. I'm not really willing to bet against William Byron here. Dropping down to the 7K range, we have Brad Keselowski, Joey Logano, very similar plays in my opinion. Brad Keselowski, this has been an absolutely awful track for him in terms of finishes recently. Now, most recently in 2020, he finished 6th and 9th, which is not that bad, but before that, it has been a rough stretch of races for Keselowski, finishing 39th, 36th, and 33rd. But if he's not wrecking out, he typically runs okay at Texas, and if this is going to be a bit like a super speedway, he's the most recent winner at one, as he won Talladega, and he's a pretty good super speedway driver, as is Joey Logano, so I think that makes both of these guys pretty interesting. So they're on my radar, and their prices are way lower than normal. Like, Joey Logano is $200 more than Eric Almirola, which is kind of insane to me. I think they're kind of baking in that there's potential where Eric Almirola could start near 20th position, which would offer him plenty of place differential. So maybe that's the reasoning for it. But I think Joey Logano and Brad Keselowski are some pretty good tournament plays here. I'd probably lean on Joey Logano more just because he's really good at Texas. 3 top 5s, 5 top 10s, and has overall been really, really good. Only kind of behind guys like Kyle Busch and Kevin Harvick in terms of being the best Texas driver recently. Ryan Blaney's up there as well. So just something to keep in mind for those two guys. I think they make excellent tournament plays. I think I'd lean Logano over Keselowski, but both are pretty much similar plays for the most part. Going down to our first driver that's highlighted in yellow, that means he's not absolutely confirmed that he's going to be in the All-Star race. He's going to have to race his way in, and I'm not that confident that it's going to happen for Eric Almirola, so I don't really want to talk about him too much here because I feel like we might be wasting time. He's very good at Texas. He has 4 top 10s here and 1 top 5, but overall this season, the guy's been absolutely trash. If we look at his 2021 numbers, they have been bad. Bad. You're going to see dark shades of red here, and it's for good reason because he has absolutely sucked. Average finish at 25th, running position at 22.1, no top 5s, only 1 top 10, and 2 top 15s. And I mean, a guy like McDowell's got 2 top 15s, Ryan Newman's got 3, Ross Chastain's got 5. Like, Eric Almirola has been terrible this year. A lot of it has been due to bad luck, but the Stewart Haas cars have been pretty bunsy for the most part this season, and I don't really see a way that Eric Almirola is getting into this race. Maybe he does. Maybe he races his way in. Proves me wrong. He's good at Texas, but I'm not really willing to bet on Eric Almirola having a good race in the Open and be able to get his way in. Christopher Bell, $7,200. He's starting third. I would have a very hard time playing Christopher Bell. Like, I'd much rather play guys like Chase Elliott, William Byron, Logano, Keselowski for a little bit more money, plus there's more place differential upside. I'd probably rather play a guy like Ryan Newman because he's starting 14th, but yeah, I'm probably not going to play Christopher Bell here. He's going to more than likely have to win the race or just finish inside the top 3, which I don't think is going to happen. He did finish third here when he wasn't in the 20 car, he was in the 95 car, so I mean maybe that's a positive thing, but I would have very, very little exposure to Christopher Bell if you're playing 150 max. If you're playing 320 or 1 max contest, whatever you want to do, I'm probably not going to be playing Christopher Bell. Tyler Reddick, $7,100. Last year at Texas, he finished second in the first race. Kind of got lucky with staying out, but him and Austin Dillon held their ground, and he finished 15th in the other race. But I think he could be a top 10 contender here with only like half the field available. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he's like in the top 8, top 10. I think he's going to work his way into the All-Star race, which he's starting in the pool in the Open, and if he is the Stage 1 winner, he'll be starting 18th, which is some good place differential upside. So I'd actually be a big fan of Tyler Reddick as long as he makes it in, which I think he will. MDB, I could see him starting 19th or 20th if he races his way in, so I think he's definitely viable as well. He would be my radar. I don't want to look at his Texas numbers because a lot of this was an absolute junk equipment, but last year when he was actually in the 21 car, he finished 8th and 17th, and looking at his numbers this year, while it's not super impressive, he's kind of been a 15th place guy. I mean, you have interest just because of the place differential upside. The thing is, he'd probably be one of the worst finishers, so if there's not a bunch of wrecks or anything, he's probably not going to offer you that many points. Like, he's not going to have a good finishing position, which, if there's no wrecks, finishing position is going to be pretty important as well. So that's where guys like maybe Kevin Harvick, Chase Elliott, Kyle Busch, William Byron could come into play if it's not the pure place differential guys that end up being optimal. But MDB, kind of an in play. I'd much rather play Reddick if these guys both make it, but that's just my opinion on those guys. And then dropping down to the 6K range, we have a super duper cheap Kurt Busch. I mean, below 7K, price below guys like MDB, Eric Almirola. I realize he doesn't have quite the place difference upside those guys do, but starting 13th for a guy that pretty much always finishes inside the top 10 here, like the past 6 races, he's finished inside the top 10 pretty much each and every single time. I think he's been like between 7th and 9th place those 6 races. We could look at his actual finishes. Yeah, 7th, 8th, 9th, 9th, 7th, 7th. Like, he has been an absolute top 9 machine for the most part. 7th to 9th place has been where Kurt Busch lives at Texas, and it would not surprise me if he does that once again. Also not terrible at super speedway races, and if we're in a pack, I mean, I hate trying to predict on what this is going to look like. I don't think it's going to be like a Daytona Talladega, but I also don't think it's not going to be like that. The guys aren't going to get strung out because we're in like 510 horsepower. So it's going to be pretty interesting. We'll see how it works out. But starting 13th at that price point of a confirmed driver in the All-Star race, I think Kurt Busch is definitely one of the better plays on the slate for that price point. I know he hasn't been great this year, but it's hard to pass up the price point for Kurt Busch. It is a little bit too cheap, and he's going to allow us to fit in some guys like Hamlin, Blaney, and Bowman in our lineups this weekend. Ricky Stenhouse, he could potentially make it in, and we know he's good at super speedways, and with this being the package, I think that's a benefit for him, and he's actually been pretty consistent this season. He has 6 top 15 finishes and 9 top 20s, and if he races his way in, he's going to be starting near the very back, and I think that would make him definitely a viable play. So I would have some interest in Stenhouse if he ends up making it in. Austin Dillon, $6,600. He's starting 5th. Texas is a pretty good track for him, but that starting position is going to make it very hard for me to roster him. I'd probably only get there if I'm playing 150 lineups. Maybe if I'm playing 20, I'll get him into 1, but I probably wouldn't feel too confident in that lineup, so probably won't have any interest in Austin Dillon. Austin Cindric, I don't think he's going to make it in. Eric Jones, he probably won't make it in, unfortunately. Now, if you're looking at his numbers, this is a very, very good track for him, but he used to be in the JGR car for, number 20, which obviously is a big downgrade in equipment now that he's in the 43 car, which is what Bubba used to drive in. And looking what Bubba did at Texas, I mean, he had 1 top 10 finishes, 2 top 15s. I personally think Eric Jones is better than Bubba Wallace, but 43 car, it's a bit iffy. If it's going to be pack racing, they're drafting, Eric Jones is pretty good at that, so that'd be a benefit for him, but I don't really think he's going to make it in anyway. And if he does make it in at the mile and a half tracks this season or similar tracks that we've had this year, hasn't been very good at them, so I don't think we're going to have to end up talking about Eric Jones or worrying about him anyway, because I don't think he makes it in. Michael McDowell, $6,300. He's starting 11th. Interesting tournament play. He actually has been pretty solid at the mile and a half tracks this year. Also, he's good at drafting, and if it's a pack race, Michael McDowell is one of the best drivers on the field at that. He won the Daytona 500 this season, so that's something to keep in mind. I think he'd be an interesting tournament play. His numbers at Texas are actually oddly okay, where he has 3 top 15 finishes. Finished 26th in the most recent race, but 15th, 15th, 14th are some of his better finishes. It's kind of like it's a bit of a pattern here. Good finish, bad finish, good finish, bad finish, good finish, bad finish. So maybe he's due for a good finish. I realize this isn't an actual Texas race, but I don't hate Michael McDowell. It's mainly just a price play. If you want to get some expensive drivers in, you could throw in some Michael McDowell lineups. Ryan Newman, $6,200. Texas is in a terrible track form, typically around that 15th place range. And also another driver that's pretty good at pack racing, going in drafts. So maybe that would work to his benefit. He's dirt cheap, $6,200, starting 14th. It's not a lot of place differential upside, but I don't think he's going to kill you at $6,200. Then after that, a lot of these drivers I don't think we have to talk about because I just don't think they're going to make it in. Bubba Wallace, maybe if he gets, I think he'll probably get the fan votes, and maybe we should mention him. He should be starting dead last, so I guess you'd have to have some interest there. We also showed a ton of speed at Daytona where he was near the front. He just got a bit aggressive and things that didn't end up working out at the end, but he could be an option. If he makes it in the fan vote and he's starting dead last, I mean, he's got the best place differential upside, and with all the inversions, maybe he lucks out into a top 10 finish. Could happen, so I guess he should be on our radar, but his numbers at Texas kind of suck, but new team this year, new equipment, different package. He'd be purely in play because of place differential. Ross Chastain, I think there's a chance he can make it. Don't look at his Texas numbers because he used to be in junk equipment. So far this season, we kind of already talked about him, but I believe he has 5 top 15 finishes. Yeah, 5 top 15s, 8 top 20s. He'd be starting around 20th place. I think he'd be viable. $6,000. He'd just be a cheap play that we could look at. Cole Custer starting 4th. No, thank you. I just don't see a reason to want to play Cole Custer. Chris Buescher, I think he ends up making it in, and if he does, $5,800, he'll probably end up being one of the chalkier drivers in the entire slate because if you can play Buescher, let's say when he's like starts 20th or 19th, I mean, that'd be a really nice way to be able to afford guys like Bowman Blaney. You could go full on place differential with that, maybe take a stab at a guy like Byron starting closer to the front that you think could win this race, and Chris Buescher can end up being very, very popular, and I think he ends up making it in, so also good at the whole super speedway thing, also been good at the 1.5s this year, so I think it just makes sense that he'd make it in. Plus, he's got track position to work with. He starts right beside a Tyler Reddick on the open race, maybe even win stage 1. We'll see how that goes. Suarez probably won't make it in, and Chase Briscoe probably won't either, so I don't want to just talk about everybody because, I mean, a lot of these guys will end up making it in. So anyway, guys, I think that's going to be it for the video. A bit shorter video than usual. It's just with the All-Star Race, we don't really have as much to talk about, and we have half the field, so a bit shorter, but I'm sure you guys are happy with that. If you made it all the way through, please let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It's just a free and easy way to show some support to the channel. If you want to support me in another way and join the community, link is down below for that. You got projections, optimizer, ownership projections, rankings, cheat sheets, Discord community, all that fun stuff. Link is down below. Follow me over on social media, and the handles are in the middle of the screen, the bottom, and then over on the left and bottom as well. You can follow me over there, hit me a follow, see what I'm up to, all that good stuff. But yeah, I think that's going to be pretty much it, guys. Appreciate you listening, and I'll see you on the live stream on Sunday. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend.